If you're a diehard Browns fan and love breaking down the game like we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a blitz. The Cleveland Browns have once again found themselves in the middle of a heated debate, and this time the focus is on the quarterback position. After months of speculation and countless discussions across sports media, the team finally settled on its quarterback room, though the process was anything but straightforward. The move that drew the most attention was the trade that sent Kenny Pickett to the Las Vegas Raiders just before the roster cut deadline. On paper, it looked like a routine roster decision, a franchise choosing to prioritize depth and potential over a quarterback who didn't quite fit. But in reality, it sparked a wave of criticism, especially from analyst Garrett Bush, who questioned whether the Browns had mismanaged the entire situation from start to finish. For fans, this has become another example of how Cleveland continues to struggle with stability at the most important position in football. Garrett Bush's critique wasn't just about the trade itself, it was about the philosophy behind it. He argued that if the Browns truly valued Kenny Pickett enough to give him meaningful reps in training camp, they should not have turned around and traded him for a fifth-round pick. To him, the move represented a waste of time, effort, and opportunity. He pointed out that while Pickett was receiving valuable practice snaps, other quarterbacks such as Joe Flacco, Dillon Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders were missing out on development time. Bush suggested that the organization essentially spent weeks preparing Pickett to play for another franchise, which now directly benefits the Raiders rather than Cleveland. His frustration tapped into a long-standing narrative. The Browns often find ways to complicate situations that should be straightforward, leaving fans and analysts shaking their heads at questionable roster management. From a logical standpoint, Bush's argument makes sense. The Browns invested time in Pickett, seemingly believing he could be more than just a backup option. Reports suggested he had a legitimate chance to compete for the starting job at one point, though injuries and inconsistency derailed that path. But if he was never part of the team's long-term plans, why not make an earlier move? By holding on to him until the last minute, Cleveland potentially missed opportunities to accelerate the development of Gabriel or Sanders. Bush argued that the fifth-round return was essentially the same as what the team had invested in acquiring Pickett, meaning the entire process ended in a wash. For a franchise desperate for growth and efficiency, repeating circular moves doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Fans who share Bush's frustration wonder if the Browns once again outsmarted themselves into making a simple situation unnecessarily complicated. However, critics like Bush often overlook the realities of the NFL marketplace. Pickett's value was not particularly high throughout the offseason. The Browns may have believed he could generate more interest if they showcased him in training camp and preseason, hoping another team would step in with a stronger offer. Unfortunately for them, that didn't happen until the Raiders suddenly needed a quarterback after Aiden O'Connell went down with an injury. That urgency created a small opening, and Cleveland seized the chance to unload Pickett for a draft pick. In this light, the Browns might have simply been operating under the reality that timing matters as much as talent in NFL trades. While it's easy to criticize the late decision, it's equally important to recognize that the team had limited leverage in a situation that never favored them in the first place. Pickett's tenure in Cleveland was never smooth. He spent significant time sidelined with a hamstring injury, which limited his ability to earn meaningful reps despite Bush's claims. When he was available, he failed to show the kind of progression that would have forced the coaching staff to reconsider his role. Gabriel, on the other hand, reportedly impressed coaches with his ability to grasp the system quickly, while Flacco brought veteran leadership that simply couldn't be overlooked. Sanders, though raw, represents a long-term developmental project who fits the team's vision for future seasons. With so many moving parts, Pickett found himself squeezed out of the equation. The trade wasn't about giving up on a young quarterback so much as it was about recognizing that other options better fit the Browns' immediate and future needs. In many ways, the frustration over this trade has more to do with Cleveland's history than the actual decision. The Browns have spent decades searching for stability at quarterback, and every misstep feels magnified because of that legacy of failure. Fans want to believe that each acquisition could finally be the answer, and when that doesn't materialize, disappointment quickly turns into criticism. Pickett's arrival was initially framed as a potential coup, a chance to develop a former first-round pick in a new environment. His departure, however, feels symbolic of Cleveland's inability to turn opportunities into results. Even though the trade itself may not harm the team's immediate outlook, it reinforces the idea that the Browns continue to spin their wheels when it comes to quarterback decisions. Looking ahead, the Browns are confident in the group they've assembled. Joe Flacco may not be the superstar he once was, but he provides steady leadership and proven experience. Dillon Gabriel offers upside as a young quarterback who has impressed with his poise and readiness. Shedeur Sanders, while unlikely to see the field this season, carries the potential to be a future building block if developed correctly. Together, they form a quarterback room that is far from elite, but at least structured with a clear sense of hierarchy. For a team that has often stumbled in this area, that clarity could be valuable. The challenge now is ensuring that these quarterbacks are given consistent opportunities to build chemistry and confidence, something that was arguably missing in the Pickett experiment. As for Pickett himself, the future looks uncertain. Moving to the Raiders gives him a fresh start, but it also places him in a precarious position. He has now been with 4 teams in as many years, and that lack of stability is rarely a recipe for long-term success. While he may still have the talent to carve out a role, the NFL is unforgiving to quarterbacks who fail to establish themselves early in their careers. Pickett must now prove he can adapt quickly, learn a new system, and show flashes of the potential that once made him a first-round pick. Otherwise, he risks fading into the background as yet another quarterback who couldn't make the leap from college promise to professional reliability. For Cleveland, the bigger question is whether this trade signals progress or simply more of the same. On one hand, moving on from a player who didn't fit shows decisiveness, a willingness to cut losses rather than dragging out an experiment. On the other hand, the process leading up to the trade suggests indecision and wasted effort, which plays into the narrative of a franchise that still struggles to maximize its assets. Fans will likely judge the decision not just on the 5th-round pick acquired, but on how Gabriel, Sanders, and Flacco perform this season. If the group proves stable and productive, criticism will fade. If not, the Pickett trade will linger as another missed opportunity. Ultimately, the Browns' quarterback saga is less about Kenny Pickett himself and more about what he represents. He became a symbol of Cleveland's ongoing search for clarity at the position, a reminder of how difficult it is to strike the right balance between development, competition, and results. Garrett Bush's passionate critique resonated because it tapped into the frustrations of a fan base that has endured decades of instability. Whether the Browns finally turn the corner with their current group or stumble yet again remains to be seen. What is clear, though, is that every move at quarterback will continue to be dissected with intense scrutiny. For better or worse, this franchise cannot escape the spotlight when it comes to the most important position in football, and this trade is just the latest chapter in a story that never seems to end. Enjoying the content so far? Smash that like button and drop your take in the comments. We want to hear what you think about the Browns this season. The sports world has been absolutely buzzing over the past 24 hours, and the center of the storm is none other than Kansas City Chiefs superstar tight end Travis Kelce. Out of nowhere, Kelce's name became linked to a headline-grabbing situation involving Shedeur Sanders, the rising quarterback at Colorado and son of the legendary Deion Sanders. Fans across social media couldn't believe their eyes when reports surfaced claiming that Kelce sent out what's being described as a hard message directed at Shedeur. Normally, Kelce keeps his public statements either lighthearted or focused on his own team, but this time the tone felt very different. Instead of the playful charm people associate with him, observers say he was blunt, pointed, and maybe even a little cutting. It was the type of statement that instantly divides fan bases, raises eyebrows, and sparks endless debates across sports talk shows and YouTube channels. What makes this situation even more surprising is the timing. Shedeur Sanders has been one of the most talked-about young quarterbacks in the country, both for his on-field performances and the high-profile presence of his father on the sidelines. The Colorado program has been surrounded by hype, and Shedeur himself has embraced the spotlight with confidence. That confidence, though, has often been misread by critics as cockiness, and Kelce's comments seem to tap into that perception. According to insiders, Kelce suggested that Shedeur needs to focus more on proving himself against elite competition before talking like a superstar. It was a line that many fans took as a subtle but sharp dig, one that carries extra weight coming from a two-time Super Bowl champion who knows what it takes to thrive under the brightest lights in football. As soon as Kelce's remarks began circulating, social media exploded. Twitter timelines were dominated by clips, quotes, and reaction videos dissecting every word. Some fans argued that Kelce was simply speaking the truth, giving the kind of tough love that only a veteran can deliver to a younger player still finding his place. Others, though, accused Kelce of overstepping, questioning why an NFL veteran would choose to publicly call out a college quarterback who's still developing. The discussions grew even more intense when analysts pointed out the cultural differences between the NFL and college football, suggesting Kelce might not fully understand the unique pressures Shedeur faces playing for his father. This added layer of complexity turned a single quote into a national talking point, fueling debates across fan bases and sports platforms. The television shows quickly jumped on board as well. By mid-morning, almost every major sports network had dedicated airtime to the controversy. Analysts were split down the middle. Some, like outspoken personalities who thrive on fiery takes, praised Kelce for keeping it real and setting a high standard for young athletes. Others criticized the move as unnecessary, pointing out that Shedeur has already shown resilience and poise despite playing behind a shaky offensive line and facing relentless pressure in nearly every game. The optics of a veteran star taking shots at a college player made some pundits uncomfortable. Still, the very fact that everyone had an opinion proved how explosive Kelce's words were. This wasn't just another passing comment. It had the feel of a genuine cultural flashpoint in the football world. Fans of the Colorado Buffaloes were especially vocal in defending their quarterback. To them, Shedeur has been nothing short of heroic, standing tall in tough matchups and handling criticism with confidence. They argued that Kelce's remarks underestimated the uphill battle Shedeur faces on a daily basis. The Buffaloes' offensive struggles are well documented, and yet Shedeur has managed to post impressive numbers and keep his team competitive in games where many doubted they even had a chance. For Colorado supporters, Kelce's message wasn't just an unfair critique. It felt like an outsider dismissing the progress and fight their quarterback has shown. On the other hand, Chiefs fans largely rallied behind their star, pointing out that Kelce has earned the right to speak candidly after years of success at the highest level of the game. Meanwhile, speculation began to swirl about Kelce's motivations. Was this truly about Shedeur, or was it more about sending a broader message to young athletes in general? Some insiders hinted that Kelce might be frustrated by what he perceives as a growing culture of self-promotion among rising stars. Shedeur, who has built a strong personal brand alongside his on-field career, became an easy target in that narrative. Others wondered if Kelce's comments might have been exaggerated or taken out of context, a possibility that happens all too often in today's media landscape. But regardless of the intent, the effect was undeniable. Shedeur's name was trending nationwide, and Kelce had become an unexpected voice in a conversation about generational differences in football culture. Adding to the drama was Deion Sanders' potential reaction. Coach Prime has never shied away from defending his sons or his team, and fans immediately speculated that he would respond in some fashion. While no official statement had been released, the anticipation of Deion's next move added even more fuel to the fire. Would he clap back at Kelce with the same charisma and energy he uses in press conferences? Would he brush it off as just another distraction? Everyone was waiting, because any word from Deion could instantly shift the narrative and elevate the controversy to another level. For now, though, silence from Boulder only deepened the suspense. As the story unfolded, former players also chimed in. Retired NFL veterans offered their perspectives, with some agreeing that young players like Shedeur should stay grounded and focus on results before embracing superstar status. Others, however, emphasized that confidence is a key ingredient to success, and players like Shedeur thrive precisely because they believe in themselves so strongly. This clash of philosophies, old-school humility versus new-school self-branding, emerged as the deeper theme behind Kelce's message. In a way, Shedeur versus Kelce became symbolic of a larger generational divide within football, one that extends beyond the field and into the culture of how athletes present themselves in the spotlight. Through it all, Shedeur himself remained quiet. No social media posts, no cryptic tweets, no fiery rebuttals. For some, This silence was a sign of maturity, proving that he wasn't going to let outside noise distract him from the task at hand. For others, it raised questions. Was Shedeur biding his time for the perfect comeback, or was he genuinely unfazed by the criticism? Either way, the lack of immediate response only amplified the drama. Fans projected their own interpretations onto his silence, each one adding another layer to the story. In an era where athletes often rush to clap back instantly, Shedeur's decision to wait, whether intentional or not, gave the narrative even more weight. Now, as the weekend approaches, all eyes are on both Kelce and Shedeur to see what comes next. Will Kelce double down on his statement, clarifying or intensifying his criticism? Will Shedeur respond directly, setting up a back-and-forth exchange that could dominate headlines for weeks? Or will the entire story fade quietly, only to resurface the next time Shedeur takes the field in a big game? One thing is certain, the rumor mill has done its job. Fans are locked in, YouTube creators are already scripting their next videos, and sports talk hosts are preparing their hottest takes. Whether you agree with Kelce or think he crossed the line, this moment has captured the imagination of the football world, proving once again that in sports, words can sometimes hit just as hard as tackles. Thanks for riding with us on another Browns Blitz. If you liked the video, share it with a fellow fan, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always part of the Dawg Pound conversation. Go Browns!